It's Hi, friends. Welcome to the Putting You Back Together Again show. I'm Rochelle Booker, aka Coach Ro.
And I'm CJ Joseph, CEEJAY, her part-time co-host. And as I usually say, it's been a while, but I'm back in the building, y'all.
He's back in action with us. Welcome back.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Well, tonight we are continuing our new fall series, Debate Stage, How to Hold On to Our Democracy, with the sub-theme Post-Debate Analysis. I know you guys caught that heated debate last week, right? We are on the cusp of an historic election, and yet many people are still on the sidelines. Go figure, right? And to be sure, some people are saying that they may not even vote.
Don't do that.
Right. Well, this is Transformative Tuesday, as I always say, and our show is to educate, empower, edify, and bring awareness to pivotal issues like voting.
Yes.
As my special guest and I talked about last week, we talked about your vote matters, and your voice is your vote.
Yep.
So we want to highlight some key distinctions between the two presidential candidates, Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, to underscore what's at stake in this election. And it's very important to pay attention, tune in tonight, and hear everything that we have to say. If you care about the future of our country, then you definitely want to make protecting our democracy a high priority. So we're going to run some video clips during tonight's show as well of the presidential debate from last week. And then after we run the clips, we're going to ask the question to you guys: are you still undecided? And if so, why?
And you know, just like we talked about when we kicked off this political pool that we're in, doesn't matter what side you're on, you know, whether you are Republican, Democrat, or what have you, because your democracy may look different from our democracy, to be sure. However, there are some distinct differences.
Big time. We're going to point them out. Yes.
Some distinct differences. Yes. So
yes, there are.
Let's kick this show off.
So, CJ, the presidential debate was contentious at times, right? And very eye-opening, to say the least. And there was definitely a stark contrast between the two candidates. So we definitely need to highlight that, because the people who are teetering on the fence, not knowing if either they want to vote or not sure who to vote for, it's really no big reason why people are undecided. And to me, I don't know why people are confused, because I don't think it's a big distinction as far as should I vote or should I not vote.
Well,
it's pretty obvious.
I mean, regardless of truly, you can't sway who you vote for.
Yeah.
However, you should vote. We talked about the blood, sweat, and tears that, especially for those who look like you and me, to be sure, and even women, because women did not have the right to vote early on. Back in the day, I'm talking centuries ago, it was only wealthy white men who actually had the right to vote, which is a constitutional right. Okay, to be sure. But you also want to make sure you exercise your right to vote. Your vote does matter. Yes, there is the Electoral College, but not only at the federal level, at the highest office, but we cannot forget at the state and the local levels as well.
Yeah.
There's quite a few elections that will be taking place during this election cycle that we need to pay attention to at the state and the local level, because some of those things that will be implemented will affect you directly more so than at the federal level.
And what I don't understand is, federal is important too, so let's not get that confused and get it twisted, because then people are like, well, I really don't need to pick Trump or Kamala. Yeah, you do. And also, it's amazing how people get excited about NFL, the season kicking off, but we're in a height of voting season, and people seem so nonchalant about voting. And it is an inalienable right, and people take that right for granted. But yet people are so excited about watching football games, getting pumped up, going buying paraphernalia. Now the outcome of the football season isn't going to matter to you one way or other, unless your home team wins. But that's still not going to add any money to your household.
Well,
But
unless you're gambling.
yeah, well, unless you're gambling, then you could lose. Yeah, you could lose a lot of money. So there's a downside risk.
Good.
And yet, you can pick the right candidates, right, who are going to make a difference and impact on our future. So why not get motivated and inspired to want to do the right thing and exercise your right to vote?
Yeah, you have to make sure you exercise your right to vote, because what has, unfortunately, has been taking place since we've been alive,
Mm-hmm.
where you have a certain group of people, even though we have the right to vote, limiting that right to vote, gerrymandering, redistricting, and things of that nature. Doing the nefarious things today to prevent you from voting. So think about this, if they are preventing you from voting or attempting to prevent you from voting, that should tell you that how important it is.
Mm-hmm.
How important it is to exercise your right to vote. If you have people putting things in place to prevent you from voting, that means that it's important to vote, period.
Yeah, because why would they suppress your vote if it didn't
Exactly.
matter?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and we talked a lot about that. So if you guys missed part 1 of this series, I encourage you to go do the playback from last week, because we kind of set the foundation, of the debate stage. And so we're building on that with tonight's show, part 2. And we want to kind of focus on what are the vulnerabilities of each candidate. And we're kind of going to focus more so at the presidential level.
Yes.
Today, and I know there's the local level elections, and there's like a ton of those, and then we have to hit each state, so we don't have the capacity to go state by state. So we're going to kind of just focus on the presidential debate this evening. So let's roll the first video, Malcolm, if you don't mind, and let's look at the highlights of that.
Clip number 1 coming at you.
We'll be right back, y'all. This is the Putting You Back Together Again show.
Stick with us.
And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
Huh.
Well, that was a mouthful. And if you really paid attention to that clip, that should really underscore, the importance of this election. The stakes are really high and who you should be voting for. So I opened up with what are the vulnerabilities of each client? Well, according to Vice President Kamala Harris, she's talking about, Mr. Trump being unfit, and people close to him actually saying he's unfit to run the country, the highest office in the nation. So if people that are close to him are actually, making this confession and giving this, giving evidence of why they feel the way they feel, I think we need to sit up and pay attention, close attention to what people are saying. These aren't people who've never met him. These are people in his inside circle, his inner circle, who have worked directly with him. That's just like you working with your colleagues or your former boss, and they give you a review. Well, if all they have to say is negative stuff on your review, your evaluation, should we pay close attention to what people close to you are saying?
You should.
Unless they're your haters. I mean, sometimes you do work with people who are hating on you. So we're going to dismiss those people.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, she brought up some great points.
She did.
And you have to look at those who you hang around with, right? And this could go for either way, but we're talking about the one side of this clip that we're reviewing right now. And you had an opportunity to lead the country, but then your colleagues saw up close and personal of what it is for you to lead the country. Now, granted, some loved it, but those colleagues who know personally very well of what that looks like don't want to wash, rinse, and repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And if people are showing you, because tonight I really want to talk about character and peel back that onion of what character means, what character really looks like, and why it's important, because integrity is attached to that, right?
Yeah.
So if people are showing you who they really are and illustrating that by their actions, you've got to believe that and take it for face value.
We talked about that in season 1. I can't remember which show
Which
it was.
one? We did talk about it.
It was ghosting, maybe.
The first one.
Yeah, it probably was ghosting. And we said that exact same thing, that if someone is showing you who they are, believe them! They're not lying to you.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so why do people scratch their heads? No, I don't think that's who that person really is. But if they continue to show those characteristics over and over,
Believe them! Hello?
Yeah. So that's where I'm not connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Why there's
Yeah.
still confusion about
Yeah.
that.
Well, but you know what? Well, allow me to attempt to explain why there's still some confusion.
Help us.
And if I can put on my rose-colored glasses, most likely why? Because once we believe as a person of something, oftentimes there is nothing that no one can say and or do to make you believe differently. There are some people who believe that the earth is flat, right? There is nothing that you can do and or say to change their minds. So when you get to that point where your belief is in your core, they're not going to change. So that's the challenge. So Vice President Harris can point out these things eloquently as she has done. But if that person who believes the way they believe, they're not going to change, unfortunately. So that's what I surmise.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. That's true. And part of my coaching, when I'm coaching my clients, that's exactly the reason why it's hard for people to change their mindset, because they have belief systems that they've been holding on to for so long. And so no matter what evidence they see to the contrary of that, they'll still hold on to those beliefs. So that's what coaching, when I'm coaching people, it's all about trying to show them a different set of facts, a different set of scenarios of why they maybe should change their way of thinking based off of other things that they haven't really thought about. So even though you've had these belief systems, like you've been a Republican all your life, and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. We're not condemning the party at all. We're talking about a particular individual, right? And some people feel that is a little radical. And so if you're seeing this irrational behavior, and in some instances, racial rhetoric, you've got to open your eyes and start to internalize these things that you see, that maybe what you see is not really the reality of what you believe. And in that sense, it's okay. It's okay to change what you've been thinking for 20 years. That's called growth. That's called evolving. That's called transformation. And some people don't believe in God, but when something really happens, like something miraculous happens, guess what? Sometimes those people start to believe in God when before they were atheists.
Or if they're in a situation,
Yeah.
they're in a situation and they need desperate help.
Yeah.
They need a miracle to happen.
Yeah. Right.
And they call on the great Jehovah Jireh.
Yahweh.
Now you talked about we along the lines of changing.
Yeah.
I just talked to someone the other night that, and especially as older or the mature in age we get,
Yeah.
those spots like a leopard, they don't change. They don't move
I know.
or anything like that. They stay
Yeah.
the same. And change is a good book called Who Moved My Cheese?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about change because change is
Mhm.
inevitable,
Yeah.
right? But
Mhm.
you have to be willing to adapt to
Yeah,
change.
that's
So
right.
sometimes you have to rewire your mindset.
Yeah.
Like who was it? Will Levins on the Tennessee Titans quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
Just pitching balls, getting pick sixes and what have you. He mentioned in his press conference he has to rewire his mindset
That's true.
to stop doing that.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
that's where it starts there. Rewiring your mindset.
Yeah.
And it's okay to open your mind and listen and really have an open heart to
Mhm.
what is being spoken.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah.
You really do, because otherwise you do become stuck in your ways, and you become, you know what I'm saying? And then you just become hardened. No matter what happens, no matter the evidence that you see, nothing will convince you otherwise. And that's not a good way to go through life.
Like Pharaoh. Pharaoh's hearts were hardened.
Yes.
The
Yes.
frogs came.
Yes.
The
Heart was
blood
hardened.
came. The hell came. But he did not change his mind.
No.
Dude,
No.
what is wrong with you?
Yeah, and that's how people are. And you have to be pliable. You have to be bendable. You have to be flexible. You do have to be open-minded, and that's part of, again, growth and transformation.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you want to have a transformative heart and mind and soul? That's a holistic approach.
Yes.
And at our church, our pastor, Pastor Cosby, always talks about the mission of Wheeler Avenue is about ministering to the total person. And it is holistic. It is the total person. So we don't even want to, want your mindset to change, but your heart and your way of thinking, right? And your behavior, which will ultimately lead to changing in your behavior.
Yes.
So put that into context. If you're not seeing this person change their behavior, like for instance, if someone's talking about racial rhetoric, even on January 6th, insurrection, and this particular person who incited that insurrection has not apologized to this country, something is wrong with that. Something is inherently wrong when you can't even accept accountability for your actions. Why would we want that person to run the country?
Yeah.
And I don't care what side, Democrat or Republican.
Yeah. We're talking about post-debate analysis from last week on Putting You Back Together Again show. If you want to put your penny for your thoughts and put your 2 cents in, please give us a call at 832-560-2885. Again, 832-560-2885 to tell us what your thoughts were on the debate from last week as this presidential race continues to get hot.
It is
in here.
It is. Things are heating up.
Yes.
And so part of why we wanted to do this show, this whole series rather, is not just to convince you to vote one way or the other, but number one, to vote. And number two, which I was going to kind of talk about this at the end of the program, but number two is, I call it the Great Commission. We see it in Matthew 28, the Great Commission, how we're supposed to go and make disciples. Well, I'm going to commission you guys to go vote and go enable and encourage other people to vote, because it has to be a movement, and we've got to support those people who are on the left. We need to support Kamala Harris. And I know who the right person is to run this country. And CJ knows the right person to run this country. You know. Let people know. Okay, we don't have a third independent party. So we got Trump or we've got Harris. Who you gonna vote for?
But to your point of making sure you vote, I cannot stress that enough. I really, really can. And now, but I think people are being galvanized to vote, because registrations have been on the uptick. Especially with Taylor Swift, for instance, saying that she's going to support her weight behind Vice President Harris. And I think the next day, about 400,000 new registrations took place. And that's a telltale sign.
Well, I think there is a lot of excitement. I think when Kamala Harris, took the reins of being the nominee of the highest, office in the nation, being at the highest level of the ticket here, that's when I think we did start seeing a lot more enthusiasm.
Oh, of
And
course.
speaking of the stats,
course.
that the last debate last week, 67 million people tuned in, which was 15 million higher than when Biden and Trump had their debate.
Exactly.
So I do agree with that. And just because they're registered doesn't mean they're going to vote. There's still a lot of undecideds. And I think that's one of the vulnerabilities. I think Kamala Harris is trying to reach, well, they're both trying to reach those undecideds. But I think the biggest factor or group of people that's going to really decide this election are the young voters. I think the millennials and the younger people are going to really be a big factor in deciding this election.
Well, just like we talked about this on the show before, even not when, I don't think it was the political show, but young voters, they have been the catalyst of the change agents in this country forever.
Yeah.
Forever. And that's not going to change in this election cycle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's right.
those, but also those who are on the margins, who are undecided, and you the registration, going back to that, it did an uptick. Doesn't mean they're going to vote, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
That is
At
a
least
good
they're
start.
registered. Yeah.
At least you're registered, but now that you've taken the plunge into the registration pool, now you have to dip your toes, your full body into the pool to vote. Yeah,
because guess what? Change is all about action. We can't just wish something is different. We can't just wish. Yeah, there's no magic in this, guys. We have got to mobilize. Yeah, no pixie dust. We've got to mobilize. This is, like I said, a movement. I mean, think about it. We touched on this several times, and you mentioned it earlier about how our ancestors fought for our right to vote, fought for civil rights, right? We've had the civil rights legislation and all of that, all the different, rioting that we had to do, fighting we had to do, and sacrificing our lives. We put action to what we were asking for. Martin Luther King Jr., he asked for action. We had to, peacefully, obviously. We're not talking about any violence. We don't condone any of that. But you've got to put some action to your words. And we can't just complain about, oh, things need to be better, things need to be different. And if you complain without any action, it's a moot point.
Yes. Yeah. And and for those who may not know, when I say blood, sweat, and tears, I'm literally talking blood, sweat, and tears, because lives were lost. Yeah. Lives were lost just to make sure we have civil liberties, to make sure we have the right of the Constitution to vote, the right to go into a restaurant and sit at the counter with our counterparts, the right to drink from the same water fountain, the right to sit in the front of the bus and not the back of the bus, the right to walk the right side of the sidewalk. I can go on and on and on. So the point is, the main thing is the main thing. Please vote. Yeah. Please. If you're undecided, educate yourself by watching the show, by watching real news shows and clippings. Not fake news. Not fake news, AI or anything like that. But one of the things I want to point out is after the debate, now, and there are different stats from different outlets. This one particularly came from CNN, to be sure. Vice President Harris had an increase in her favorability by several percentage points after the debate. And the unfavorability actually decreased by several percentage points. Oh, okay. Yeah. So those who did not or know her or know what she stood for, change. Yeah, that changed. We just talk about change. It changed. Yeah. Now, and to be sure, I want to make sure I give the other side of the fence to be fair and balanced for Donald. It kind of stayed the same. It was within 2 to 3 points, maybe 2 to 3
up
points.
Or down. Yeah,
up or down. Favorability didn't really shift that much.
Oh, okay.
Unfavorability didn't really shift that much. Gotcha. Not at all. It just stayed the same pretty much.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yes, stayed the same. Now, one thing though that was vastly different, the day after the debate, $47 million were poured into Vice
Mhm.
President Harris's
Yeah.
coffers.
Well, that's about as much as Trump got when he was first convicted.
It was like 38
Was about
million.
38 million.
37 million. Now,
Oh.
again, to be fair and balanced,
Yeah.
the day after, I don't have those numbers because his camp did not release those
Oh,
numbers.
gotcha.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Wonder
wonder
why.
why. So there is energy
Yeah.
even before the debate, and definitely energy after
It's
the debate,
ongoing.
going towards Vice President Harris.
Yeah, and part of that debate and the things that led up to it, with the different organizations that she was interviewing with, National Association of Black Journalists. She had a great interview today with them. All the town hall meetings she's been doing. So all of those things have led up to her rebranding herself. So rebranding and branding is very important. And so we want to show the second video clip, and it'll really highlight some things so we can talk about branding and what they actually represent.
Yes, run that thing, Brother Malcolm.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Amen. So again, when we talk about character, nobody is above the rule of law. It doesn't matter what your position is in the world, in this country. And too many times, too many instances, we've seen people abuse their power, and on both sides of the aisle, right?
yeah,
Not
absolutely.
just on the right. So people take their positions for granted. People take people like us, the voters, for granted because they believe that they can continue to do it and get away with it. No, it's not. And so character with responsibility, you've got to, or with power comes responsibility, and you've got to be accountable to what you do, especially when you have elected positions, you hold elected positions. We are electing you, so that means we are hiring you, or we can fire you, right? So
That's
you're
the way it
fired if you're not getting the
That's
job
the way it
done
is.
and you're not showing integrity and you're not showing character. Why should we keep rehiring someone and they lack integrity? And that means that we can't trust you if you don't have the integrity that you need to have.
You know, you mentioned insurrection.
Yes,
Moments
January
ago.
6th.
Vice President Harris mentioned, convictions and getting rid of 45,000 agents, what have you. One of the things that really spoke to me was this past Sunday, I was watching 60 Minutes, and they had a segment about January 6th. They included some people who were the culprits, who were convicted, spent time or will be spending time behind bars because of their actions on January 6th.
Proud Boys.
And well, I'm not sure if this particular guy was proud.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, so I don't want to say that he was or he wasn't. But he still believed what he did was right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which is fine. You have that right to feel that way. But one of the things that really spoke to me was the police officer
Mhm.
that was trapped between the doors
Mhm.
when the crowd surged and his body was being crushed. Someone taking his gas mask and punching him in the face.
Mhm.
This gentleman during the interview was on the verge of tears
Yeah.
because of how he was treated, and no one at the highest level of the office had his back.
Mm,
That speaks volumes.
it does. That's really sad.
Not including the lives on both sides that were lost,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But the way he talked, it was just,
Mm,
it just spoke to me differently
yeah.
because of the fact this gentleman has a job to do.
Yeah. Mhm.
And he is rehearsing and practicing so much restraint. Now, to be sure,
Mhm.
that could not have been me.
Yeah.
I would have emptied my chamber, got
Woo!
another chamber.
Help us, Lord.
I'm trying to tell you, get rid of the club,
Yeah.
the nightstick.
Well, but in that same line of thinking, had that been Black Lives Matter storming the Capitol, oh, it would have been a bloodbath. They would have
Game
been
over.
annihilated.
Game
So,
over.
so that's why I'm so passionate about social justice and talking about all these inequities, because there's always been this double standard. And not only that, there are people that Trump and his allies said that, or the people that were arrested and went to jail said that they should be exonerated. How should they be exonerated for storming the Capitol? That is a threat to our democracy. And that's what this whole series is about, is protecting our democracy. How is that helping to protect democracy when you're storming the Capitol because the election results didn't go your way?
Yeah. And
Why are we fighting something? There's no evidence to say that the election was rigged. No evidence to corroborate that whatsoever.
some of the highest courts in the land
That's right.
indicated that they were not rigged.
That's right. It was not rigged.
That was not rigged. And to have that mindset of breaking the law,
Yeah.
and not honoring the
Right.
rule of
The
law
law.
and the election process, that's a problem. That's the reason why things are in place the way we have them now,
Mhm.
to make sure things like that don't happen, to make sure lives are not ill-affected
Mhm.
and or lost
That's right.
because of someone's opinion about or feelings being hurt.
Yeah, that's what it's about. It's about hurt feelings and things didn't go my way. Well, how is that setting a good example as a leader? Because everything's not going to go your way. Life's always going to throw us curveballs, right?
Yeah.
And if you're going to sulk and pout and get angry, and encourage other people to do the same when you don't get the results that you want, that's not an indication of leadership.
Right.
In fact, it's just the opposite. And me as a U.S. citizen who's eligible to vote, I just cannot put someone in office to lead this country who stimulates this type of disruption in our economy and in our country. It's just it's clear to me about who I need to vote for. It really is, and hopefully it's clear to you guys, or it should be at the end of this show. Yes. And so also we want to, talk about some sensitive issues around race and politics.
Well, race and politics have been
Yeah.
something that this country has gone through for many
Many
decades.
years. Yes.
Many decades. From the beginning, actually, of time. Because again, when the Constitution was written,
Mhm.
it basically said that all men should have the right to vote.
Yes.
However, people who look like me and Rochelle did not have that right to vote. And also women, as I pointed out earlier as
Yes.
well.
Denied.
So race and politics have been intertwined in this country, in most cases negatively,
Mhm.
since the founding of this country.
Yeah. And even in I think it was the 15th Amendment, when black men were given the right to vote, they still couldn't vote because they were being intimidated and bullied and
Given tests.
and giving literacy tests. So all kinds of barriers, much like what's going on today, right?
It's
It's
it's different,
yeah,
but the same.
yeah, it's the same concept.
It's different, but the same. So it's different tactics, but the goal
It's
is
the
the same. Is
Yeah.
to prevent you from voting.
Hmm.
Because again, as I stated, if someone or a group of people is preventing you from voting or suppressing your vote,
Speak up.
there's a reason
Yes.
why. There's a reason why, because it's called being fearful
Hmm.
of what the results could be.
Hmm.
That's what it is.
Yes.
It's fearful of what the results could end up if people who were eligible to vote
Hmm.
actually voted.
That's right. That's right.
Actually voted.
Yeah.
So vote, vote, vote,
Mhm.
vote, vote.
Yeah, it's very important. And I
Yes.
think there's some legislation that they're trying to pass to prevent immigrants from voting. I believe that's something that's been discussed in Congress. So again, if more people of color vote, that's going to challenge the Republicans' agenda. So we've got to do our research and do our homework to see what's really going on. Again, back to peeling back that onion and understanding the motives that are not pure. God looks at our heart and he looks at our motives. And if the motives are not pure, you might want to take a second look at who you really need to be voting for, right? Yes, take a
Yes.
second look at that.
Yes.
And so speaking of immigrants, yeah, we want to play the third tape video to talk more about this subject.
You recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I don't
asking.
know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people?
Yeah, well
Huh.
said. Well said.
Hmm.
So, you know, I mean, that was a loaded question, but that question needed to be asked. If you don't care about race, why do you keep making it an issue? every time you have these rallies, every time you do interviews, there's always some mention about immigrants, sending them back to, Mexican immigrants, sending them back to Mexico, Haitian immigrants. We're going to get to that in a minute. But if you don't care about race, why then do you keep making it an issue? I mean, I see a pattern of behavior. So, and you can't, we can't talk out of both sides of our mouth, say one thing and then we're actually doing something else or saying something else. The contradiction there.
Let's put it in really simpler terms. If I was to say to you, Rochelle, let's say 2 weeks ago, and said, you know what, I don't really care for your earrings. Now, your earrings are, not the earrings you should be wearing.
Mm-hmm.
But then fast forward to some weeks later, and the subject of the earrings came up, and I was like, well, I don't care about earrings. When I'm flip-flopping,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Flip-flopping. So if you didn't care about it initially,
Mm-hmm.
why even bring it up?
You wouldn't even say
from
anything
the
about it.
get-go?
Yeah. And then there's a lot of momentum behind it, and then you're inciting the insurrection. I mean, it's just, and because you know that if the left is takes over Congress, the Democratic Party, that there are going to be a lot of policies are going to be passed, legislation passed that are going to help the marginalized, are going to help people of color, they're going to help the country as a whole, which is going to include a lot of minorities. So let's again peel back the onion and read between the lines to understand what's really going on. It's not hard to figure it out. It doesn't take a scientist or a genius to understand what's going on. Oh, we've got a question from Brenda. She is the worst VP, and I don't want her to be president. And I don't want her to be President Trump and Vance. Okay. Can you call us, Brenda?
Yeah,
Let's hear.
832-560-2885. So
And
we
let
get
us
clarity
know.
on your statement there. And
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you. Just give us a little more, a little more color around that. Why do you think she's the worst VP? What policies does she implement that make you feel that she was a worst VP? Yeah, no, we want to have a constructive conversation. And thank you for that comment.
so, my left eye is a little janky, so let me get a little close. She's the worst VP, and I don't want her to be President
Trump and Vance is who she's supporting. Yeah. So give us a call, Brenda. Thank you for that, because we want to hear from Republicans and
I think
Democrats
there's a couple of words in this.
and undecided.
Yeah.
I think she meant, I don't want them to beat President Trump and Vance. I think that's what she meant.
Okay.
Call her, Miss Brenda Gojohn,
Yeah.
please call in
Yeah,
and
give us a
clarify.
call. Give us a call. Give us some clarification around your
Yeah, it
statement.
sounds like she's pulling for Trump and Vance, because she said, yeah.
But just
She's the worst
you're
VP.
right to.
Yeah.
Keep
Absolutely.
in mind with vice presidents, they are not made to be in the forefront.
Mhm.
They're really not. They're made to support the agenda
Mhm.
of the president. And
Yeah.
if the president, something happens to the president where he, because there's always been a he in this country, where he cannot fulfill his duties, then the vice president is standing by
Mhm.
to take his place.
Yeah, and now I have a lot of respect in one sense for Vice President, former Vice President Pence, because Mike Pence did not go along with Donald Trump's rhetoric and his whole insurrection campaign. Pence was like, no,
Which is
I don't support that whatsoever. So he's got some backbone there. Now I do support Pence with that.
which is again to my point.
Integrity, yeah.
To my point of the vice president
Mhm.
is there to support the president's agenda. So when
Yeah.
Vice President Pence went against the grain of that,
He split, yeah.
that ruffled some feathers.
Mhm. Created some contention there.
Yes.
Yeah, but see, it's not about just going along to get along. It's about, back to how I opened the show, it's about character and integrity. And if the president is not demonstrating character and integrity, then the vice president didn't say, hey, call him out for it.
Right.
He had every right to call him out. And we as a country, as the voters, have every right to call out our leaders who are not exhibiting the right behavior.
If you voted.
Mhm.
Esther says, we're screwed either way. I encourage you to call
Yeah.
in. Esther, if you're still listening.
Yes.
Thank you, Esther.
Well, you know, and perhaps because of past administrations, Esther
Yeah.
feels that way.
Yeah.
Because maybe some things that didn't go her way.
Yeah.
And to some people, to their point, they feel that way.
Yeah.
That regardless of who you vote for, but you also have to make sure you delineate between the lesser of the two evils.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that you just
And
have to-
actually, you know, I think the Pope just mentioned something about vote for the lesser of two evils. I think the Pope just said that
yeah,
recently. Yeah.
He went in on both of them.
Yeah.
on Donald
And
and Vice President Harris.
And listen, we're not trying to say Harris is perfect. There's no perfect candidate. We are just
Nope.
evaluating the behaviors of both, the character of both, the nature of both, to see who's going to be the best fit for this job, who's going to be the best leader for America. That's what we're doing here. So if you look at, again, even just the 3 clips, we've got one more clip to show you, but the 3 clips we've already played, and you've got someone making issues about race and all this rhetoric about racial issues and trying to demonize, dehumanize different races because of the color of their skin. That's a problem. You don't see Kamala Harris doing that. Now, you might not agree with all her policies, but where do you see her dehumanizing and denigrating people, degrading people? So that's what I'm talking about, is character. And that should matter to you. If you were married to someone and that person was dehumanizing you or tearing you down every time you looked around, would you still want to be married to that person? I mean, let's call it the way it is. Call a spade a spade.
Unfortunately, some women, and there are also some men, to be fair and balanced, that would want to, but then there's a lot that would not
There are a
want
lot.
to.
Yeah.
To be sure.
Yeah.
To
A
be
lot
sure.
who wouldn't.
Yeah, so give us a call if you're tuning in. Thank you for the chimes in, for the comment section, but give us a call to provide more clarity on what your thoughts are to 832-560-2885 on Putting Me Back Together Again show with Coach Rowe and also CJ, CEEJAY.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, we appreciate the comments.
Yes.
So, on that same topic about race and politics, again, another demonstration of how someone feels strongly about or negatively about immigrants in this country. And I saw a great interview today on CNN, and a Haitian, she's a Haitian citizen, U.S. citizen, and obviously speaking up for the Haitians because of that whole incident around Haitians eating cats and dogs.
Ohio.
Yeah, the lies around that, and the person that actually stimulated that lie apologized. All this, the lies started on social media, but that person who actually started that rumor actually stood up and apologized. So, but the interview I saw on CNN, the Haitian immigrant, who's a citizen here, said that we don't need hate, we need help. And I thought that was a powerful statement, because that's exactly what we're talking about here. Is people don't need to be beaten down. People need to be lifted up. People don't need to be discouraged. They need to be encouraged and empowered, right? And so why should we make them feel less than because of the color of their skin or where they're from?
Well, unfortunately, this is nothing new.
Yeah, it's been
The
going on for
Gentiles
centuries.
were hated on.
Yeah.
Because of who they were,
Mhm.
because of their skin color and things of that nature. So this is nothing new.
That's
this is
right.
just wash, rinse, and unfortunately repeating.
Yeah. Well, thank God that God is an inclusive God.
Yes.
God does not exclude anybody because of their Republican or Democrat, their belief system, their political beliefs. So God is an inclusive God. And as a country, we should be an inclusive country, right? We keep saying it's this melting pot and the salad bowl and all of that stuff, which is a metaphor. Of course, it's very diverse. But do we really embrace diversity?
Well,
How do
this
we
country
embrace
was
diversity?
founded on immigration.
Right, it was. And we got Black people who built this country. We had Indians here before, the Europeans arrived.
Exactly. Italians,
Right.
Spaniards, all the country was literally built on immigration.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we turning a blind eye? And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I know there needs to be some control.
Yeah, of the border.
I do.
Yes.
I do understand that. I totally agree with that. but we should not also turn a blind eye to the very thing, to the very entity that built this country.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, I don't know what your, obviously religious beliefs are, but CJ and I are both Christians, and we do believe that Jesus is love, God is love, and God wants us to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. So how can we say we love one another when we keep demonizing people because of where they're from? Having control of the border is one thing, but hating them and wanting them to go back and not wanting to help them, that's a whole different story. And then talking about Haitian immigrants eating cats and dogs, that's racist in of itself.
Yeah.
And there's no evidence of that. And even the moderator, and we're going to show this last clip, the moderator even brought that up. There's no justification to continue to spew these lies.
Yeah.
It's just baseless.
We'll be right back, everybody. Once again, this is the Putting You Back Together Again show. We'll be right back.
Don't know what was on the menu. I can surmise, I can posit, I believe that there were no cats and dogs and pets on the menu. You were waiting for it. I know you were waiting. There were no cats and dogs. Mr. Willie, they didn't wash it down with bleach. I saw it. Now, while we're laughing about that, let's be clear. That statement by itself and its continual presentation is just as racist as they come. Because he's talking about black immigrants who are in Ohio, and he is othering them by saying they're eating dogs and cats. And if you're still undecided at this point,
Can I say preach?
Yeah.
Literally, right?
That was a mouthful right there.
That was a mouthful. And the reference to bleach,
Mhm.
because I didn't catch that
When we
part.
had COVID,
Yeah.
Trump told us to drink bleach. That's how we were going to cure ourselves.
And so these are just
That's how he
some
handled this.
factual
Yes.
examples of what has taken place
Yeah.
just in today's time and just several years ago.
Yeah.
So stating in a lie, repeating a lie does not make it true. Understand that. Repeating a lie does not make it true. And specifically targeting a certain group of people about eating cats and dogs.
It's just wrong. I mean, it's just wrong. I mean, it's so simple when you're saying something that's racially motivated, to cut people down, to dehumanize people, to make people feel they're less than. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And so for the people that comment on the show about Vice President Kamala, being a bad, a candidate for the presidency, and you feel that Trump is a better candidate, even after you've seen and heard what we played in his videos, I just hope that, God does change your heart and open your eyes to see Trump for who he really is. And we're not saying, oh, you just should become a Democrat now. We're just saying this particular candidate running for the highest office is just not fit for this office. I mean, you've got to have some care and concern about people. You've got to care about people's welfare. That's who I want to lead the country.
Yeah.
And have a relationship with God. If you have a relationship with God, which I know many people do who claim to be racist, but you can't be racist and love God at the same time. I mean, that's an oxymoron. Yeah. That's antithetical to the word of God.
We talked about unity. There's a reason why, and we're still striving to have this, but there's a reason why this country is called the United States of America. Not because we're joined by borders of states, but because of our differences still unites us. Now, that's a mouthful by itself. Our differences unites us. And where you're in a position of using your voice, your platform to tear that apart and to ununite, it's a problem.
I think he wants us to break away from the union altogether.
It's a
So
problem. So
I don't think he
and-
wants us to be part of the union, so not the United States anymore.
yeah,
But that's
so-
a whole nother show right there.
right. So yeah, you know,
yeah.
we want to make sure just like Vice President Harris said, even though we have our differences, there's still a lot that unites us and that we have in common. And we can all just get along. like the brother Rodney King said many decades ago. We can all just get along. He didn't make a statement, he was asking a question actually. But we can if we have the right voice and from the right platform, uniting us versus dividing us.
And we need peace. We need peace restored in the world, definitely in this country. It's just too much negative rhetoric going on. We've got a question here. What do you say to those who say Kamala Harris is a female version of Barack Obama?
I mean, I guess that's a great question.
And I think Barack Obama was excellent president. So
yeah, I mean, to be sure, he had his flaws.
They all do. I mean,
just like every person who has ever been in office,
and every person that is alive. You and I have flaws.
Okay.
So
you asked that question.
Yeah.
One of the things that President Barack Obama ran on was, hope, right? And he brought people together, mind you. So if that's what she's doing, bringing people together versus dividing them, is that a bad thing?
And when I opened up the show, I talked about character and integrity ought to mean something. We can't afford to turn a blind eye to a person's character, especially for the people we elect. And there's a quote that I want to rattle off here from Zig Ziglar. He says, "You can get everything money will buy without a lick of character, but you can't get any of the things money won't buy: happiness, joy, peace of mind, winning relationships without character."
Great salesman.
Yeah. Now that was he's very inspirational and uplifting. But that was a powerful statement there.
Yeah.
So character means everything.
Yeah.
Just like your vote. Your vote matters. Character matters. And who we're voting for.
Absolutely.
So again, yeah, Kamala Harris has flaws. So does Trump. I mean, all candidates have flaws. So we're not saying one is perfect, the other is not.
Nope.
What we're saying is we're talking about character and integrity, and we're talking about the direction of this country. We want to move forward and not backwards. I don't know about you, but I don't want to go back to Jim Crow. I'm not trying to go back to that era where we were in bondage. Because guess what? There are some people who want to send us back to Egypt. And spiritually, there are people who are in Egypt. That was a mouthful right there. That was powerful. So we want to be delivered. And yeah, we want to be anchored in hope, to your point, which is very important, because our hope is built on nothing less.
In Jesus' blood
and righteousness. Yeah, absolutely. So that's the foundation of believers and hopefully of this country.
Yeah. So yeah, and again, got another comment from Instagram.
I believe in the Lord. I do live in a mixed community where it's bad what's bad on going on.
No,
Bad and good going on.
I
It's
do live in a mixed community where it's bad and good going on.
Well, yes. I mean, and to be sure, there's never ever going to be a situation or a time when everything at every level is going to be all good, because it's just not how he created the world.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah.
If you go back to the beginning of time, there was bad and good then.
Yeah.
So if there was bad and good back then, there's to be bad and good now. Now, here's what I will say, and I just spoke this yesterday to someone: E plus R equals O. There's always going to be an event. Always events are going to happen. However, your response to that event would equal your O, your outcome. So your event plus your response, whether it's positive or negative, will equal the outcome that will happen. Truly believe that. So there will always be bad and good. You just have to do your best to rise above the bad and do as much good as you possibly can.
Yeah, listen, there's evil spirits everywhere. So we wrestle not against flesh and blood. There's evil principalities, obviously, that can sometimes take control of a person's mind. You know, there's demonic spirits. And sometimes we do see people who need to be delivered from those demonic spirits. And we see that in the Bible. And God says, come out, you impure, unclean spirit, you know, to the man that had the demons. And so you can be demon possessed, and there's evil. Of course, we know there's good and evil, right? So there's always going to be that dilemma, that challenge. And we are just wicked by nature. Humanity is just wicked by nature. We just have something bent in us, and that's sin. We're all sinners. Yeah. And so you're absolutely right about that comment. So we're not saying that Kamala Harris, if she gets elected, she's just going to wave a magic wand and all the evil and all the bad's going. If God hasn't eliminated the evil by now, why would we expect Kamala Harris or any other presidential candidate to be able to eliminate that, right? But we do want someone to fight for us, to fight for the marginalized, to fight for the to the lowly, to fight for the disenfranchised. We want somebody in office to do that.
The least, the lost, the left out, and the left behind.
And the lowly and the left behind. That's what we're talking about here. So you're absolutely right. And it's not going to happen overnight. Yeah. It's a process. And we need more law enforcement, the right people in office to put together the right types of policies and legislation to help us move this country forward.
Yes.
Well, wow. Well, we're at 7 o'clock mark. We had a good discussion.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Yeah. And it's something that we need to continue to talk about. It's just very important. Do you want to have any last remarks?
My comment is you have your decision on who you want to vote for, right? Primarily, vote. Don't sit on the sidelines and not make your voice matters.
Yes.
So don't sit on the sidelines, especially those who did not have the right or have the right to vote, but the right to vote was denied, was suppressed, was prevented from them from having the right to actually voting. So don't sit on the sidelines. This race is too important, too critical for you to sit on the sidelines. So go out and vote. Make your voice be heard.
Thank you for that. Do we have one more comment?
No, ma'am. I have an inbox, and they explained to me that they are very apprehensive about calling in because they don't know who's listening, and that could, of course, cause some feelings.
Okay, we understand.
So they chose not to call in, but they said great show.
Thank you.
They said great show.
Thank you. We appreciate that, and we appreciate your boldness to disagree with us and to to make your opinions heard and seen. So we appreciate that. We really do. Thank you so much for sharing your comments. So our goal on tonight's show was to help you make an informed decision on who to vote for. It's clear to us on which presidential candidate is better for the country. If you're still unsure or undecided, we urge you to go and watch the replay of the full debate. Go to the candidates' campaigns website and review their vision and their plans and their strategies to help us move forward and to build a better future. So get a better understanding of what they really represent. Again, let's do the right thing, like Spike Lee said, do the right thing and go vote. Our future is at stake. Our democracy is at stake. And so we just want to encourage you to vote and encourage other people to vote. As I mentioned, the Great Commission of not just making disciples, but the Great Commission of voting. Go vote and inspire other people to do the same. Well, that does it for us, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Be sure to follow us and like us on social media. So we love you. Thank you for tuning in. We want to see you next week. So please join us again and be blessed. Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4. One, two.